Lomu. Before Lomu, wingers were usually smaller, quicker players who stayed wide and finished off plays. But then came this 6'5", 120-kilogram force of nature who had the pace of a sprinter and the power of a forward. It wasn't just that he was big, it's how he used that size that turned him into a global icon. Lomu's signature move was simple but devastating. The power run combined with a perfectly timed handoff, or what rugby fans call a fend. But this wasn't just any fend. It wasn't used to avoid contact, it was used to dominate it. The perfect example is his performance against England in the 1995 Rugby World Cup semi-final. Everyone talks about the try where he ran over Mike Catt, and yeah, that one was brutal. But the entire match was a showcase of how Lomu used his size intelligently. He didn't just run straight, he angled his lines, picked out weaker defenders, and then unleashed that stiff arm at the exact moment they tried to close the gap. What made it so effective was how unpredictable it was. Defenders would brace for contact, but Lomu had just enough pace and balance to change direction slightly before impact, forcing them into bad tackling positions. And once he had the upper body angle, that handoff came fast and direct, right to the chest or shoulder, enough to knock defenders completely off balance. And then there's his stride. Most big players have shorter strides and need time to build up speed. Lomu had a long, fluid stride and could hit top speed in just a few steps. That made him lethal on counterattacks. If he got the ball in space, even 40 meters out, you already knew what was coming, and most of the time, there was nothing anyone could do about it. It's important to understand that Lomu wasn't just running wild. He was reading the field. He knew when to run a straight crash line, when to angle in toward the fullback, and when to shift it wide. But when he did choose to go solo, his signature power run with the fend was more than just a highlight. It was a statement, and the effect was massive. After Lomu, teams started rethinking what a winger could be. Suddenly, you didn't just need speed, you needed physical dominance. You needed someone who could break through defenders, not just run past them. Lomu's signature move wasn't complicated, and that's exactly why it worked. It was raw, it was effective, and nobody could stop it. He wasn't just scoring tries, he was changing the way the game was played. Up next, we have a player who was about precision and control, and that one move turned into a weapon. But before we talk about that, please hit the subscribe button. Thank you. Dan Carter. Now, the thing about Carter is that he was a complete fly half. He could pass, kick, defend, read the game, everything. But what made him stand out, especially in high-pressure moments, was his ability to deliver a perfectly timed drop goal. Not just for show, not for highlight reels, for winning matches. The best example, the 2015 Rugby World Cup final. New Zealand were ahead, but Australia were closing in. Momentum was shifting, and you could feel the pressure. That's when Carter stepped up, dropped into the pocket, and slotted a 40-meter drop goal like it was a training session. No rush, no panic, just balance, timing, and execution. And just like that, he shifted the entire momentum back in New Zealand's favour. So let's break that down. A drop goal isn't just about technique, it's about decision-making. You have to recognise the exact moment when the defence is spread thin, when the ruck is secure, and when you have just enough time and the space to take the shot. And Carter was a master at that. He didn't force drop goals. He didn't take them out of desperation. He took them when they meant something. Technically, he was near perfect. Body over the ball, quick drop, clean strike. And he always stayed square to the posts. What separated him from others was how fast he could set up. There was no wasted movement, no hesitation. As soon as the ball came out of the ruck, he was already planted, eyes up, and boot ready. That quick setup time is what made him almost impossible to pressure. And it's not just about finals. Carter used the drop goal in regular matches, in tight games, in the middle of long phases. Not just as a last resort, but as a calculated choice. He treated it as a tool in his arsenal, not a gamble. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't trying to do something outrageous. Carter just did what needed to be done. And he did it better than anyone else. And that's why his signature drop goal stands out. Not because it looked amazing, but because it won games. You knew that if the game was tight and Carter had a clean pocket, it was over. That's how reliable he was. And if Carter was all about calculated precision, the next player is the complete opposite. Chaos, unpredictability, and pure electricity. Let's talk about the sidestep king. Cheslin Kolbe. He is probably the most unpredictable player in world rugby. But here's the thing. What makes Kolbe special isn't just his speed. It's the sidestep. Not a generic step, his step. This is a player who can change direction without losing speed. And I don't mean he slows down and cuts. I mean he accelerates while shifting direction. That's almost impossible to defend. His signature move is the lightning-fast sidestep off either foot. It's short, sharp, and explosive. And the key is that he commits defenders just long enough to freeze them. Once you plant your foot to tackle, it's already too late. Kolbe's changed direction and gone. The best example, the 2019 Rugby World Cup final against England. That try in the closing minutes. England had momentum, they were still in it. And then Kolbe got the ball on the wing. He had Owen Farrell in front of him, not a slow defender, not a weak tackler. And he left him completely flat-footed. One sidestep, one acceleration, try. But it wasn't luck. Watch it again, and you'll see that Kolbe invited Farrell in. He closed the space just enough to draw him in, then exploded off his right foot and went wide. That step wasn't just about speed, it was about timing, vision, and understanding angles. Kolbe's footwork is also built on something most people overlook: balance. He keeps his center of gravity low, knees bent, chest over his hips. That's why he can go full pace, drop a shoulder, and still recover instantly. Most players need a full step to regain speed after a sidestep. Kolbe doesn't. He's already 2 meters ahead before the defender turns. And here's the tactical side. Kolbe doesn't step just for highlight reels. He uses it to break defensive lines, to beat the last man, and to create mismatches. Defenders are forced to overcompensate just to contain him, which creates space for his teammates. Even when he doesn't beat you, you're too off balance to make a proper tackle. That kind of disruption is rare. There's a reason why teams often double mark him or kick away from his side. The sidestep is that dangerous. It doesn't just beat defenders, it breaks systems. So while Jonah Lomu was brute force and Dan Carter was controlled under pressure, Kolbe is pure chaos. But it's chaos he fully controls. Every movement has intent, and if Kolbe is the master of making defenders miss, then our next player is the opposite, the one who never misses tackles and whose signature move is shutting down the most dangerous players in the world. It's Richie McCaw and his breakdown mastery. If you're talking about game changers, there's no way you skip Richie McCaw. The guy didn't just play open side flanker. He defined the role for an entire generation. And his signature move, total domination at the breakdown. But let's be clear, McCaw wasn't just throwing himself into rucks. What made him elite was how calculated he was. Every time he arrived at a breakdown, he had already processed 3 things: who carried the ball, where the clean-out threat was coming from, and what the ref's positioning was. That last one, understanding the referee's line of sight, is something only the smartest players ever master. McCaw had it down to a science. His signature wasn't a single moment. It was his ability to arrive first, get his hands on the ball, lower his body angle perfectly, and then either win the turnover or slow it down just enough to disrupt momentum. That's the part most fans miss. Sometimes he didn't steal the ball, he just made the recycle slow and messy, and that alone was enough to give the All Blacks time to reset their defensive line. Watch any All Blacks match between 2005 and 2015. The same pattern appears. The opposition makes a line break, McCaw tracks across the field, and just when you think they're about to launch the next phase, he's already over the ball, forcing a penalty or creating a turnover. It happened again and again. Technique-wise, he was flawless. Low hips, wide stance, strong grip, head up. He didn't just dive in, he locked on. And because his body position was so clean, it was hard for refs to penalize him. Add to that, his insane endurance, playing 80 minutes, getting up from every collision, still getting to the ruck before the ball carrier even hit the ground, and you've got the most influential breakdown operator rugby's ever seen. And then there was his discipline. People love to say he pushed the limits, and he did. But he understood those limits better than anyone. That's not cheating. That's elite game awareness. McCaw's presence alone changed the way teams structured their attack. Some teams would deliberately avoid carrying the ball into his zone. Others tried to flood rucks with extra players, but that just left gaps elsewhere. Either way, he disrupted your system. The best way to put it. McCaw didn't wait for mistakes. He created them. And he didn't need a big hit or a line break to shift a match. He just needed half a second at the right ruck, and the entire flow of the game would change. And if McCaw was the master of controlling chaos, then the next player flips that idea, because when he got the ball, the structure went out the window. Semi Radradra. This is a player who makes the impossible look routine. When Radradra plays, it feels like you're watching in slow motion and fast forward at the same time. But the move that defines him and separates him from most modern centers or wings is his offload, and not just the casual one-handed flick. We're talking about deliberate, game-breaking, momentum-extending offloads that completely unpick structured defenses. What sets Radradra apart is his control of contact. Most players, once tackled, look to place the ball cleanly. Radradra doesn't think like that. For him, the tackle is not the end of the play. It's the start of the opportunity. He uses his upper body strength to stay upright longer than most, and his ability to read the support runners is second nature. He doesn't force the offload. That's important. There's always intent behind it. He scans, holds his balance, absorbs the hit, and then, just when you think the move is finished, the ball is out. Soft hands, fast release, perfect placement. It's not thrown in hope, it's delivered to someone. Let's go back to the 2020 Autumn Nations Cup when he was playing for Fiji. They were up against Georgia. Radradra broke the line, drew in two defenders, and just as he was falling, he slipped a reverse offload to the trailing support runner, who didn't even need to slow down. Try. That's not instinct. That's vision, strength, timing, and awareness of where everyone is around him. The entire sequence took 4 seconds, but it dismantled a full defensive line. And here's where it gets really technical. Radradra doesn't just offload in space, he offloads in traffic. 2 or 3 defenders hanging on him, and somehow the ball still gets through. He's mastered the ability to keep one arm free, even in dominant tackles. That's a skill you don't learn in drills. That's developed through hundreds of minutes of game awareness and contact adaptability. Defenders have a hard choice with him. If you go low, he breaks through. If you go high, he keeps the offload alive. That dilemma alone creates hesitations, and that half second is what opens space for his teammates. And it's not just about flash. Coaches trust Radradra to execute this in tight test matches. It's part of Fiji's entire attacking system. The offload isn't a plan B. It's baked into their structure. He just happens to be the best at it. When Radradra plays, the phase count almost becomes irrelevant, because if he's involved, there's a real chance that the ball won't hit the ground until it's behind the try line. And while Radradra breaks structure with offloads, the next player breaks games open with something entirely different: raw pace, timing, and a unique understanding of space. Brian Habana. He was not just one of the fastest players in rugby history, but also one of the smartest. His signature wasn't just sprinting down the sideline or finishing off overlaps, it was his intercepts. The way he read opposition backlines, baited fly halves, and picked off passes with split-second timing. That's what made him so dangerous. Now, an intercept isn't just about speed, it's about reading shape. Habana studied attacking patterns like a chess player. He wasn't gambling, he was anticipating. He'd track how many phases a team went through, who their primary distributor was, and when they were likely to try a wide skip pass. And when he saw it coming, he wouldn't commit early. He'd hold his position until the last possible moment, and then explode into the passing lane. You could see it over and over in his career. Take that famous try against the All Blacks in 2005. New Zealand was building out wide. Daniel Carter was trying to go behind a pod to feed the winger, and Habana stepped in and snatched it mid-air. From read to reaction to finish, it all happened in under 2 seconds. That wasn't just instinct, that was film study, positional awareness, and elite acceleration coming together. The thing is, Habana never needed to be the biggest or the most physical wing. His edge came from preparation and execution. He understood how to angle his body so he could explode laterally without giving away his intention. He understood passing cues. When a fly half's hips opened too early, or when a center telegraphed the ball out wide. That allowed him to cover massive ground with almost no warning signs. Even in structured defense, where most wings are told to hold width, Habana had the license to step in because his reads were that consistent. Coaches trusted him, and more importantly, teammates trusted him, because if he didn't get the ball, he still recovered fast enough to reset the line. And if you look at his intercepts, they weren't just flashy. They changed the momentum. They killed attacking sets. They silenced home crowds. One intercept can flip a test match, and Habana delivered that multiple times across his career. Beyond the intercepts, his finishing was clinical. Once he had the ball in space, there were very few players who could catch him. But what made him elite wasn't the straight-line speed. It was that ability to recognize opportunities before they fully developed. That's what set him apart. And just like how Habana punished overconfident passes, the next player punished any lapse in positioning. Shane Williams. The smallest guy on the pitch most of the time, but often the hardest to catch. His signature, the in and out sidestep. It wasn't just a trick, it was a complete movement system, a way to manipulate defenders by shifting weight, using footwork, and exploiting even the tiniest gaps. If you want a perfect example, look at his try against South Africa in 2008. He gets the ball with 2 Springbok defenders closing in. Most players would cut in and make contact. Shane doesn't. He squares up, gives a quick shimmy, feints inside, and the second the defender commits, he goes outside. No wasted motion, just clean acceleration off a short angle. Within 2 steps, he's already out of reach, and he finishes the move in the corner. Now, what made it work wasn't just agility, it was timing and body shape. Williams stayed so low to the ground that his center of gravity never wobbled. He could shift direction without slowing down. And because he was smaller, defenders misjudged the contact point. They either went too high or too wide, and by the time they adjusted, he was gone. His unpredictability made backline defenses nervous. You couldn't line him up like a normal winger. He didn't run in straight lines. His lines were reactive. He read the defender's balance and adjusted in real time. The in-and-out sidestep wasn't pre-planned. It was built off split-second decisions. That's why he was so dangerous, even in tight channels. It also made him extremely effective in broken play. Loose kicks, turnovers, broken defensive lines. That's where Shane thrived. Because as soon as defenders hesitated even for half a step, he had the speed and agility to make them pay. And let's not forget, this wasn't just flashy footwork. Shane Williams retired as Wales' all-time leading try scorer and was named the IRB Player of the Year in 2008. His sidestep wasn't a gimmick. It was a weapon that consistently created results at the highest level. Antoine Dupont. This is a player who redefined what a scrum half can do with a ball in hand. His signature move, that sniping run from the ruck that catches defenses flat-footed every single time. What makes it so special isn't just his speed, it's his timing and decision-making. Take the 2021 France versus New Zealand test. You see Dupont crouched over the ball at a ruck. The defense looks set, but Dupont isn't waiting for space to open. He creates that space. As soon as the ball hits his hands, he explodes forward, slicing through gaps that barely exist. It looks like he's got jet propulsion strapped to his boots, but it's not just raw pace. Dupont's unique because he plays 2 steps ahead mentally. He watches the defender's positioning, predicts their first move, and decides in milliseconds whether to dart left, right, or take the contact. Sometimes he even fakes the run to bait defenders, then accelerates the other way. That split-second decision is what makes him so hard to defend. What's impressive is how consistent he is. In that France-New Zealand game, Dupont made several sniping runs, not just once or twice, that kept the All Blacks' defense on their toes. Every time he launched, defenders hesitated for a fraction of a second, and in rugby, that's enough to break a line. And beyond his speed and vision, Dupont's strength matters. When he commits to a run, he can break tackles or offload on the move, keeping the play alive and forcing defenders to scramble back. It's the full package: speed, power, and brain. He's changed how scrum halves approach attack. Instead of just distributing the ball, he's a genuine attacking weapon who can shift momentum with a single run. It's why he's become a central figure in France's rise back to the top tier of international rugby. And there you have it, a deep dive into some of the most iconic signature moves in rugby, from Habana's pinpoint intercepts to Dupont's lightning-fast snipes at the ruck. Each of these moves isn't just a flashy trick. They're the product of years of hard work, instinct, and incredible game intelligence. What really stands out is how every superstar finds a way to make their move uniquely theirs. Whether it's through speed, agility, timing, or pure power, these signature moves define their careers and change the course of games. But which of these signature moves is the next? Well, let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you.